Hello, and welcome to CLEA'S World. I'm Clea Necchiarico, and today I'd like to speak about how a lot of the things in our past that we take for granted and we believe are a certain way are truly just stories that we tell ourselves, projections of the reality that we are focusing on and not necessarily true per se. And the proof of that is in the fact that we can shift them very quickly. And also I like to talk about how, especially when we experience negative emotions, we tend to go to old familiar places and to have a type of blueprint that we follow that kind of runs on auto and we're not quite aware of. So before we move forward, I'd like to ask you to please like, share, and subscribe. And I would love to hear from you. So please leave me a comment below because I like to know if this resonates, if you've had any experience like this, or if this is something that gives you pause and makes you think about how this might be happening in your own life. I have noticed that it happens in a lot of people's lives. It definitely has happened in my life until I became aware of this and started healing it. So let's get to it. So this is what's happened to me and what has inspired this video. Out of nowhere, well, it's not quite out of nowhere, but it was out of nowhere for me. In the past week to week and a half, I have heard for the first time in years from two different people that, again, I had not heard from in years. And both of them ended up connecting with me or contacting me in the last 10 days. Now, if you're anyone like me, if you're at all like me, I don't believe in coincidences. I find that everything is a synchronicity. This was quite compelling as a synchronicity because what are the chances, really? If you think that it's a coincidence, then, I mean, that's a pretty big coincidence. One of these two people, the first person who contacted me about, I want to say 9-10 days ago, is my ex-husband. And the second person who contacted me yesterday is a man that I was madly in love with after I left my ex-husband. I wrote about both of these people in my memoir, my #1 Amazon bestseller, Untamed and Free, and I will actually link it below in case you're curious to read the story. But what these people are in a way linked in that sense. And this is why this became very interesting for me. And I've been thinking about this. So let me tell you just very quickly what's transpired, and I'll tell you why I'm even making this video, what has been the breakthrough because of this occurrence. So about 10 days ago, I hear from my ex-husband. He approaches me. Now, he hasn't replied to any of my emails in years. And I send him an email every month. I have to, as per our divorce agreement, to let him know what he owes. And because he has never given me a dime of what he owes for maintenance for my daughter or anything else, then I'm just used to sending this email and it kind of goes in cyberspace and who knows what happens to it. All of a sudden, 10 days ago, I get an email back from him where he just tells me that everything I have sent is incorrect and everything needs to be redone. And clearly he's trying to rattle me and he's trying to send me scrambling and to do the homework for him or to give, to encourage, basically to react to his input. So he's sending an input out there and I am supposed to scramble and react to this input. Now, why was he doing this? First of all, from a very 3D perspective, he is sending this out because he's wanting to connect with me and because he's been gone for a long time out of our lives. Of course, he believes that by connecting in that way, I am forced to reply. And I am forced to reply in a certain way because in his mind, he's still stuck on a version of me where I allowed a lot of abuse in my life, and I would respond to an attitude like that. I would react. I would try to do whatever I had to do to pacify him. So he knows that, or he knew that that worked for me. He has not done the work. I can tell just from the way he's approached me. So not only he has no idea that it is possible to do the work and to become a completely different person, which is what I have done. I'm a completely different person from who I used to be. And he has no idea who I am anymore. He still has this image of me in his head that doesn't even exist anymore. But also because he has not done the work. First of all, you wouldn't know that people can do the work and change. It's not even a concept that would be familiar to him. If you don't do the work, you might think that people can never change. And this is unfortunately, it's a limiting belief. It's not really true. People change all the time when they're ready and when they want to. The second issue is that because he has not done the work, he also is still in the place where he was before. It might even be deeper in the hole where it was before. And the reason I call it a hole is because it's not a happy place of everything, of all the misery that he's causing my life. And this is not, I'm not trying to throw him under the bus. I've made my own mistakes in our relationship. Relationships never fall apart just because of one person. So let's be clear on this. Just because I'm making a video, this is not to say that I was innocent and I never did anything wrong. This is just impossible. You go through life, you make mistakes, and then you recalibrate and readjust, technically. However, there are people who don't ever recalibrate, never even second guess what they've done and that kind of thing. So in his case, he has made certain mistakes. Instead of stopping everything like I did and trying to figure out what his role had been in our relationship and how he could grow from it or learn from it so that he could be happier in the future, he is still in the same place. In fact, what did he rushed to put a band-aid on the whole situation. He very quickly found another woman to move in with him, and he's had a relationship with her. They already she got pregnant right away. And these are things that, these are not just things that happen by chance. These are things that we want to put in place because we are trying to hide things from ourselves. We're trying to pretend that there's a certain reality, to keep a certain reality going, even though this reality is not quite serving us. So what's happening is that clearly he's not happy. I can still see that he's miserable. He's the same person he was before, attacking in order to get a reaction. He still is not at the point where he can be forgiving, not only of other people, but also of himself, to where he doesn't need to attack people anymore, or he doesn't have to lower himself to attacking in order to get somebody's response. Because I would have actually responded very differently had he come across as being, oh my goodness, he's done some of the work. So the bottom line is that he still, that was his MO, his modus operandi, and he's still there. Now, second person. So I let this go. I'm like, okay, I guess it happens eventually. I'm assuming he would have a bad day or whatever it is, and he needs to take me down a notch or feel like he's still in control. Who knows? This was a really irrelevant email. It changes nothing. And he's in the wrong when it comes to the fact that he hasn't paid any money. So him saying this is all wrong doesn't mean anything, because it's all black and white written, on our divorce decree, agreed to by the judge. So it's not something that he can change just because he sends me an email. So again, the email, the purpose was not to really quantify or disqualify anything. This was an emotional knee-jerk reaction from him. What's happened with this other person who's come back yesterday, and I hadn't heard from him, my goodness, since beginning of 2019. So it's almost exactly 3 years, is that he sent me a very sentimental message where he's saying, and I won't go into details, but basically he's saying that he's full of regret, feels loss. It's because he was so in love with me that he didn't know how to handle it. That never happened to him before. And it's fine. You might believe that. You might expect that I am thinking, oh, this is unfortunate, except because of the work I've done. I have this understanding that these people are not coming back to me because I meant something. These people are coming to me because they believe that I meant something, meaning that they have me, as I happen to be Clea, it could have been somebody else, but they had me to be a witness for a certain time of their lives. And because they're still living there, or they believe that that was a good time of their life, or somehow better than where they find themselves to be right now, they must connect with me. Now, of course, I appreciate the second person more. I call him Nick in the book, just for clarity. Let's use name. My ex-husband is Jack, and the new person is Nick. And this new person, of course, he approached me very differently. At least he wasn't rude, but at the same time, he's doing the same thing. What he's doing is, here's what's happening. He is not happy where he is. I can already tell, because whether he's married, and he did do the same thing as my ex-husband within 6 months of me basically disappearing out of his life, he found somebody else and got married that same year. We only rush to do certain things when we don't want to look at ourselves. We cannot bear to look at ourselves. We're such a low that we don't want to look at ourselves. Now, when you are at a low like that, like I've been, you only have two choices. You either pretend that it's not happening, trying to find something outside of you that will comfort you, in this case, a warm body, and the pretense of a new relationship that you think is going to heal somehow what you've had before, what is coming from inside of you. Or you do the work that I've done, which is extremely, extremely painful. And whereas they put a Band-Aid on it and within 6 months they solved the situation, distracted themselves, I was in pain, in excruciating pain for several years. So I don't blame them for making the choice they've made, except what happens is you're just delaying the inevitable. Eventually, everything comes back to the surface, and that's what's happening. A few short years later, I don't know if this man, Nick, is still married or not married. Either way, this is not a healthy thing to do. He's looking in the past for some form of comfort, again, looking outside of himself. Now, why do I say that this is not real? It's a story. What transpired among us, which he doesn't seem very aware of or didn't bring up, because we have our own version of what's happened to us. Everybody has a different version of the past. You could have 10 people in a room that would tell you, who have witnessed the same event, they would tell you 10 different versions of this event. We all know this. So these are stories we tell ourselves, and the stories told himself is that somehow we missed out of this amazing thing, which might or might not be true. We will never know, because he was afraid or he really needed somebody, whereas I wanted to take my time. I wouldn't even comment on that. I mean, needy somebody is a sure sign that you're not wholesome. I will just leave it at this. So what's happening now, and I do hope at least he's not married anymore. What's happened though, is that he would be able, what's been happening during these years, because he was telling me, I always think about you, I wake up with this, I go to bed with this, is he's still not living in the present. So he was with this person, and I do hope he's not with her anymore, for the simple reason that I really wouldn't want her to have her husband write to another woman telling her, you're the greatest love of my life, or whatever that is. But he is going to these familiar places to comfort himself, because he doesn't want to be in the present. And what is the present? Because this relationship would have started on the wrong footing, not because there's anything wrong with this other person, but of course, the fact that she was okay with getting married this quickly also means that she didn't know herself very well, because we're supposed to get to know ourselves and then the other person before we jump into something like this. And a lot of us make this mistake. So again, this is not judgmental, it's just what happens. Every time something happened between them, he would have thought, instead of saying, hey, what am I doing? How am I recreating this? Instead of focusing fully on the new situation, you start getting a little bit dejected, and then a little bit more dejected. And then you start thinking there's something wrong with this other person, and maybe this relationship is not so hard. And then you start making these mountains, these huge stories inside your head, and you start living in the past. Now consider that if you were healthy, say there's something, I do have a partner right now, But say that something happened with this partner, I would never, ever, ever look back, because I'm just not the person I used to be. And therefore, looking back, I would be meeting or being with someone who is not going to be good for me, for the person that I become, because I have different needs now, or different preferences, I should say. It's not really needs. We don't have needs for other people. If we're healthy, we don't need other people. So I would think, oh, look, there's a world out there. Who knows who's out there? For me, it would be exciting. And I apologize. I'm noticing from my video that it's kind of glitching every once in a while. I don't know what is going on. There is no bad weather today, so I don't know if there's something wrong with the internet. Hopefully you guys are seeing this okay, and especially hearing everything okay. There are no glitches there. But basically what he's doing instead is going to the old familiar places. Because here's what happens. We have this idea that if something is in the past, it is safe. We see it in a light that we want to see it in. Rarely this light or this perspective reflects fully what actually happened. And so we romanticize things because we tend to think the past is much better than it used to be, because it feels like a safer place than where we are right now. However, the problem is, as we don't pay attention, we lost what we lost in the past because we weren't paying attention. And we tend to do the same thing over and over until we stop and realize, I am here right now. What can I do now to improve my relationship or my situation? Maybe improving my relationship means leaving, but it doesn't mean dragging it on or feeling like the problem is outside of me. What happens is that we all have this blueprint for how we elaborate or how we entertain negative emotions when they arise. So what do I mean by negative emotions? There are no negative emotions, but we talk about negative emotions when something is just a little unpleasant or very unpleasant because we really have never looked at it. So it's now accumulated into something huge that in the beginning might have just been a nudge, right? Oh, maybe this doesn't feel so good, or maybe you shouldn't be annoyed at this other person because that maybe grows into, you end up separating, who knows? But basically, we all have this way of reacting to things that are unpleasant to us. So that cause discomfort, that cause pain. For example, mine has always been that when I am angry or when I am upset about something or sad, I shut down completely. Now, this was a learned behavior because I felt when I was a child, like that was the only thing that would catch my father's attention. Whereas it didn't matter when I didn't like something and I didn't do that. But if I, for example, stopped talking to him for 3 days, then eventually he would talk to me. And so I was able to overcome that entire period of just being mad. It wasn't healthy. And it hasn't been healthy because I have reproduced this behavior many, many times. Now, during my silence, normally I do. During my forced silence or self-imposed silence, normally I do think about things and I normally do calm myself down. And so I am more reasonable when I come out of these long silences, but truly it's not a healthy thing to do. The reason I'm doing that is because I have convinced myself that I have to be reasonable, because otherwise, if I speak to other people when I am unreasonable, I'm being too emotional, and therefore my emotions don't really matter and they will just dismiss them. And again, this has been my, and I am sorry, my nose is itchy because I have allergies. I have been shown this. Now, why have I been shown this? Because I have attracted this again, because I needed to see it. I don't do this anymore. I don't think it's perfectly human to be emotional when something is happening. And I am able to make sense of even my emotions, to explain them in the moment. I have been helped in this, so I don't limit myself by shutting down now when something happens. In fact, I'm very quick at integrating what's happening and talking about it. I've been helped in this by my new partner, who instead is a talker. He needs to talk things through. And I really appreciate that, because I think it's a much healthier way of dealing with things. Now, that's my preference. For some other people that might think, oh no, I really need to take some time to myself before talking to my partner, because maybe I start calling them names or I get really angry, I start throwing stuff. So each situation is different. In my case, it was simply a matter of I didn't trust my own emotions. I thought that maybe I was being too emotional. Maybe things were not the way that I thought they were. And again, this was my own way of shutting myself down and undermining my own emotions. So that wasn't healthy in my particular case. I'm not saying that is never healthy to do. So this was my blueprint. The blueprint for my ex-husband is when he feels uncomfortable, when he feels the nudge inside and it's like something is very wrong, his first instinct, which has worked for him, at least on the surface, is to look outside of himself to find a culprit, somebody to blame for his feeling of incompleteness or sadness or despair, whatever he might be using. He might be feeling at the time. He's very, very miserable. He leads or used to lead, but I don't know that that's changed, a very unhealthy lifestyle. And therefore, it really does need to do the work, which I don't know that he will ever do. That's his choice. I'm not saying that he won't. But the knee-jerk reaction for him, every time he feels bad, which I'm sure something is happening in his life where he feels bad because happy people don't behave like this, he thought, who can I blame? And of course, it's normal. This is quite normal. If you have had, if you've been in a relationship that hasn't ended so well, you'll know this happens. The problem that he has is that I'm not reacting. I am not sending the energy that he expected to receive back from me. So he wanted, because you do create your own story, you need the other person in this case to be the bad guy. So you do this bad action because I'm sure he doesn't feel good about this. This doesn't feel normal. He's probably feeling stressed. He thinks he's feeling stressed from me. He's really feeling stressed from what his life is offering him right now. And so he's doing this hoping to reflect back to himself the kind of energy that he has, so he can say, oh, that's where it's coming from. Problem is, I've created now a vacuum because I did not respond in kind, and I don't even have it in me. I really don't even have any sort of feelings towards him, whether good or bad, because I've done the work and I've released all of that. I've seen the role that he played in my life, the role he played in my life. I'm very grateful for all of it. I don't regret anything. And so because of this, now he's going to have to deal with a lot deeper stuff. And now he has a way of finding somebody else to blame. And so maybe he blames his current companion, if he has a companion or whatever that might be, his boss, his work, I don't know. But this is his blueprint. And until he chooses, he looks at it and he realizes why he's doing this and where it's actually coming from. And he chooses to now start working on his own internal sensations of inadequacy even with life, with the way that he's living his own life, where he's unhappy, he's not going to be able to solve this. Now, as far as Nick is concerned, his blueprint has been that he is a victim of fate, that he is a romantic, and that therefore he's an idealist, so he wants all these things, but it's just not how life works. And he martyrs himself. So he walked out of my life because he didn't want to hurt me, even though that's exactly how he hurt me. He walked away from me, didn't give me what I needed at the time. And the time I did have needs because I wasn't healed yet. And he did all of this because he's a good guy. Now, I'm not saying this is not true in his mind or that he's not a good guy. I'm not saying this at all. He's a good guy in many, many ways, which is one of the reasons I loved him. I could see this beauty in him. Just like I used to be able to see beauty in my ex-husband. As I said, I haven't seen him in years, so I don't even know who he is anymore. And we always pretend that we know people, but we don't really know people. We don't even know ourselves really until we start actually looking. So I'm not saying Nick is not a good person, or he's not romantic, or he's not an idealist. He does have, and this is what has always hurt my heart, is watching him self-destroy, self-sabotage the way he does. It's just that his blueprint is to come at me with that, leaving behind the scenes or ignoring or even forgetting fully the way that he has actually manifested some of the things he's done and why our relationship or no non-relationship really ended the way he did, and he's trying to tell me this is the loss that he still feels. One, he didn't need to feel that loss. We can change what we're doing in an instant. And secondly, he's doing this because he wants to feel like he is just not finding what he would love, because he is out there and he's got these high expectations on life, because he's got this big heart, which he does. He also has a lot of trauma that he needs to work on, but he does have a big heart. At least that's what I think of him. The problem is that when you do this, again, you are just hiding yourself, shielding yourself by what's really right in front of you and you don't want to see. So what he's doing is running to something that is familiar to him, that is safe. Not only I was safe at the time, I never accused him of anything. I just walked away when I had enough and I couldn't take the pain anymore. But he's also shielding himself from what's happening right now. And he's saying, oh, it's just because this new person or this new situation doesn't compare to something that only exists in his imagination. Our non-relationship was also not good when we were in it, because neither one of us was getting what we needed. We loved each other. And I have a feeling that there is a reason why he came into my life to help me. In fact, I'm convinced he helped me learn certain things. So I am very grateful. But this is done. This is finished. We are now supposed to look at where we are right now. See, time doesn't really exist the way we think it exists. It's a concept that we have on this planet that is not really a universal concept. So really what it is that he's living in a different reality. All time is different. It's you focusing on different parts of realities. Could be parallel lives, parallel alternative realities, parallel stories, if you want to call it that way. Just because you think something happened 5 years ago, really, what is it? It's a distance between that reality and this reality where you find yourself in. And so he is asking me to provide my energy, to bring my energy to that particular reality, so that now that reality becomes stronger. Because the more people pay attention and focus on a reality, the more energy you bring to it, the more it becomes real. But it's not real anymore. It's just a version of history. It's a version of, it's just a potential reality. For all we know, it doesn't even exist anymore, in the sense that he and I, of course, have different views of it. And therefore, there was no one reality that happened. This is the tricky part about the past. You want to believe that it's a fact, it's written in stone, but it isn't. I'm sure that I believe I remember things that might have not happened the way that I remember them. I'm sure of it. This happens to everybody. So the point is, I am focused on my own reality right now. In fact, I'm very focused. I'm very excited about things that are going to happen in the future in my life, while I am firmly planted here, though. So I'm learning my lesson about being planted in the present, not just be focused on the past or the future. And he's trying to drag me back with him so that that reality becomes more real to him, and we can have our own version. We can live almost in a parallel universe that is not real. I am not doing this. And because I'm not doing this, now he's going to have a choice, just like my ex-husband, to focus on what he has. Because by me not providing this energy, the reality kind of dissolves and falls apart, or there's a crack created in it. And he's going to have to do something with this crack, because what happens is I'm creating air. I'm offering a vacuum, and we cannot have vacuums. So we'll see what he does with it. Absolutely, I'm not sending any bad vibes. But this also tells me that it is possible to do the work. Who I am today is so different. And this was a test. Because again, nothing happens by coincidence. And definitely not two such coincidences in such a short period of time. This was a test for me to say, a measuring stick for me to say where I'm at. Have I truly done the work or not? And this is how I know that I've done the work. I will tell you, because until yesterday, I believed a certain way. And today I realized, no, this is where it's at, actually. I did not react at all to my ex-husband's letter, no matter what. As I said, this would have rattled me in the past. And now I see it as nothing. It's almost like I got a letter from my UPS box telling me I have to pick up a package. I responded to it because I have to do certain things by divorce decree. So I did. I responded along the lines of the divorce decree period. There was no animosity or anything of that kind. And in the past, I would have felt very bad for him. I spent many, many years of my life, both while I was married and while I was trying to heal myself after I left him, feeling very sorry for him, because one is basic human compassion. Secondly, you can't just cut off feelings that you've had for somebody that I have loved for a long time. So a proof to me that I have done the work is the fact that I am done carrying him, even from a compassion perspective. I was carrying him still. That was my connection to him. I still wanted to retain the connection, and I did it through this human piece where I felt like, oh, I feel bad for him. Look what's happening. I wish he would do the work. Now I give him the freedom that I give to everyone else, which is he doesn't have to do the work. It is his choice. He's not a victim. So that's where I realized that it's not that I don't care for him anymore because, again, he doesn't deserve it or whatever it is, but because he's a human being like everybody else, and we are welcome to do anything we want, which is only a mistake if it makes you miserable. Otherwise, it's what you want to do. As I've always said about him, he could have done all these things had he not been married, and it would have not been a problem. It's his choice. The problem was that he was married. So I walked away because I don't want a husband that does certain things, period. For this other man, yesterday I was quite, what's the word? Indifferent, almost indifferent. And not indifferent as in it hadn't really reached me, this message. And I was thinking, okay, this is good. It's the same reaction I had. It's the same impassable reaction that I had to my ex-husband's email, and therefore good. It means I've detached myself. And then today I realize I do feel bad. And I don't feel bad, again, these are not victims. None of us are victims. I don't feel bad for this man because he's sad, he's miserable, or because he's reaching out to me and I'm not available anymore. This is not a 3D thing. The reason I feel bad is because all of us have the ability in 1 second to change our reality. It is just a matter of switching your belief. It is like a switch. It could take a second. Of course, in our very dense reality, it takes years, like it took me years. But I wish I could just do a transfusion of the understandings I've come to during this work. It took me forever, but the second I got this breakthrough, I was like, oh, there it is. And all of a sudden it's a given. This is a new starting point for me. I don't have to repeat this lesson all the time. So I wish I could pass that on to him, because I can see from where he's at that it's a switch. It would be so simple on paper. It really is not that simple when you have to do the work, but it would be so simple on paper to achieve this understanding and not find yourself trapped in your own beliefs and in your own blueprint. It's a matter, of course, of accepting yourself or going deep. And that's what doing the work means, is that you look at yourself without judgment in every facet of who you are, and you realize that everything that's happening is because this is what you thought you needed to make yourself feel good, feel like you're alive. And sometimes we don't even feel good, and we do these things, or we cause these things because we think we would feel even worse if we didn't have them in our lives. So it's almost like we live in terms of which one is the lesser evil, as opposed to going all out and trying to achieve the maximum happiness that we have access to. So in this sense, I feel very bad about him. And this is not, and I ask myself, is this because I'm still attached to him? And no, it's not really that. My energy is not attached to his anymore. I have cut this because I wanted to give us both the ability to move forward unhindered, untethered to each other. We have done what we needed to do together, so it's finished now. I feel bad because this is part of my healing. I feel bad because I realize that we hurt ourselves just because we believe that the suffering is a better solution than the actual suffering that's coming from the actions we're doing. So in other words, I just want to make this concept clear. we believe that this longing, which causes us suffering, is a still better option than the suffering that the reality we're living in is causing us. So he's trying again to choose the lesser evil by going to this place that seems safer to him. And of course, it is safer because the past cannot be changed, meaning that whatever story you have, that's the story you're going to be left with until you do the healing and then you start putting a new perspective on it. So I hope this makes sense. I really wanted to explain this point because we all do this. We all have familiar places we go to. And I would like you to ask yourself when you do go to one of these familiar places, what is it that I don't want to look at? What am I hiding from? You start doing this work, you will never look back. Everything will flow just so smoothly, which doesn't mean nothing bad ever happens, but your perspective of it will be so different. You will be so objective in looking at it. They will not cause nearly the amount of emotional turmoil that it would have caused you in the past. I am, because of this work, a much more serene people than I used to be. And I never thought in my life I would get to this point. And I'm still learning, but the difference is really night and day. And seeing, it's almost like, it's a blast from the past. Seeing how these people are kind of still stuck in these emotional roller coasters has brought home the fact that there was value in what I've done, as painful as it has been to look at certain realities. It is still worth it because you have many years ahead of you and you're going to take advantage. And even, I don't care if you're 90 years old, it is still worth it because you will live days of bliss that you would have not had access to otherwise. So I hope you enjoyed this video and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye-bye.